So today I read this headline in the news that said that after America criticized Israel for its conduct in Gaza, Israel invited attention to the civilian toll of America's own wars. Now, my friend who was sitting with me was surprised to read this headline. He said that America's support was more important than ever for Israel, and that what Israel just said was another suicidal move by the Netanyahu government. However, I am not surprised to read this because there is a history behind it. As it turns out, it has happened before that the Israeli Jew turned his back in such a manner on a valuable Western partner, the white South African. Nowadays, Israel's critics like to charge the nation with being an apartheid regime and compare its treatment of Palestinians to South Africa's actions during the apartheid era. The Israeli Jewish establishment, of course, adamantly rejects these accusations, and they're also quite vocal about condemning apartheid and speaking out against its legacy in South Africa. They paint their own nation, Israel, as being the very opposite of everything apartheid stood for. However, back when apartheid existed, Israel and South Africa were actually very, very close allies. Now, this is not surprising because it's understandable. Both nations were probably united by their common position as a Western outpost in a strange land, struggling to survive. But Israel's whole behavior towards South Africa was one of opportunism. Early on, when independent nations were springing up across Africa, Israel, while trying to curry favor with them, spoke out against apartheid. But later in the 70s and 80s, Israeli cooperation with South Africa grew in military and security matters, and it was quite a strong cooperation happening during the time, and it was happening during the time that South Africa was greedily devouring Angola and intervening in Rhodesia, of course. In fact, it was Israeli complicity that gave South Africa the atomic bomb. But later, in the late 80s, as the international community began to stand strongly against South Africa, Israel, the Israeli state and society joined in the chorus against apartheid in South Africa, even as their security establishment, which is the secretive part of Israeli society, continued its cooperation with the apartheid regime in South Africa. And ever since apartheid came to an end in South Africa, Israel's stance against apartheid has only grown. Now it is really strong. The Israeli Jews are among the most vocal voices out there against the history of apartheid, and they're quite active in agreeing with all the others about how it was the worst thing ever. And this is despite the fact that, as many Israelis back then said, South Africa's partnership and support may have helped Israel survive its difficult early decades. And in spite of that, Israel seems to be so eager to dump its former allies who used to run South Africa and just let them be thrown to the dustbin of history, let them be condemned so vigorously. And this shows that Israel's whole approach towards its alliances is based upon expediency, not necessarily values as a nation likes to present itself as being built upon. So right now, it is America's support that is vital for Israel to guarantee survival. But the fact is that America's prestige is seriously declining, and its influence on the global stage is waning like it has never had before. Meanwhile, Russia's prestige and influence appears to be growing, and we've seen how Israel refused to stand up against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. So it's really no surprise then that Israel has decided, apparently, that in order to preserve its own hide, it should join this ever-growing chorus against the United States of America.